So I've written a few words on tonight's gospel. This evening, Ash Wednesday, as we have ashes placed upon our foreheads to symbolize that we are dust and to return to dust. And we are also signed with the sign of the cross as we were at our baptism, when we vowed, or it was done for us, to turn from sin. And we know that as humans, we are sinful, though we have the love of Christ always with us. And we are baptized into that love. As humans, we do fall short. And we need to confess and show repentance for our sin. But the confession and repentance is part of showing our love and our desire to follow what God, through his Son, Jesus, wants for us. And I think sometimes our society can mock the acts of contrition, saying that we are servants of our religion. And it is true that we are servants of Christ, but that servitude is a freedom to serve through love. And on Ash Wednesday, we get the imposition of ashes, an obvious mark that we did something religious, that we acknowledged this ritual. I remember in Catholic school, we would get it during the daytime service and wear it all day. So then we know who had gone to Mass and who had not. And on the bus home, we knew also who had gone to Mass, but the students from the other school were wondering what we had on our head. Then in the Gospel we read, "Beware of practicing your piety before men in order to be seen by them." And it might seem a bit of a contradiction when we do such a visual ritual. I don't think back in school we were necessarily trying to out-pious each other, but I think it's a good thing to remember as we go into Lent, to not visually always be showing your piety. Lent, for many practicing Christians, traditions that do observe it, often involves the observance with some practice or something to enhance our spirituality, to practice a repentance that was mentioned, a discipline that helps us focus on the season as we move towards Easter, where we celebrate the death and resurrection of Jesus that was offered for us. The 40 days of Lent, of course, are sent to mark the time of Jesus in the desert, the 40 days of fasting. And they can be accompanied by giving up food or a temptation or taking up a spiritual practice during Lent. People often ask each other, good-naturedly, it's a culturally based question, what are you giving up for Lent? I had a friend that used to joke that he was giving up guilt. But I like the message in today's gospel, the challenge, if you will, not to parade our piety, not to show our good deeds before the world, but to do them quietly for God, for the love of Jesus. That is a whole spiritual practice right there, because I know this temptation. And when we see someone famous also in our culture and they give a donation, and it's immediately on the media. And for example, or we tell everyone what we do for Lent. But what if we did it privately? And there are many that do this already, give and practice devotion secretly, as the gospel tells us. But I like to be reminded and challenged, because I am a part of that generation that puts everything on Facebook. And so it's a challenge in the 21st century. And it's to our faith and our trust in God. God sees what we do, and what we do hones our focus of Lenten preparation. And then we remember Easter and why we really observe Lent. And also Jesus is telling us that there are those in the society, his own society, that love to look all pious. And that there are those in our own society and institutions, and we don't want to be mixed up and confused with them, because piety might be masking something. So I think this all gives us a chance to think about how we show and how we conduct ourselves through Lent, and what we're ultimately focusing on. And finally, Jesus says, don't be miserable. If we're following a spiritual discipline, it is for love and edification, to remind ourselves of Jesus, who we worship, who gives us life, and who can guide us as we turn ourselves towards him and follow him to Easter on the Jerusalem road. Amen.
Amen.